shout out the boy, man.
He's
You feel
nice.
me? You feel me? Shout out our producer Hassan, man. I already told y'all he put me on my favorite song of the moment, man. City Boy Mo, Sky Blue. He also put us on Remtrex, Not Guilty. This album that we're reviewing this week, straight out of Birmingham. What'd you think, Sway?
I like going into albums not really having too much biased information on the artist. Like you said, we listen to our producer, which is what makes this show as good as it is. And he was like, "Listen, I'm from Birmingham. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Producer, am I saying that correctly? Birmingham, Birmingham. You gotta
He
say it
gonna
like
mute
that.
you.
Yeah, he's gonna mute me. Yeah, he's shaking. He's shaking his head. Maybe is that right? He's shaking his head. But he said, "Listen, you gotta listen to Remtrex from Birmingham. Our producers from that area too. And we give it a listen. You know, just dove into it, heard it out. I love hip hop.
I know it.
I love hip hop, dude. We had to listen to that Black album last week. You know,
My man said had to.
we did. We had to. We had to force ourselves through it. So I don't have too much on the artist, but I we did listen to the album. A few things that I a few things that I realized about this album is that I was able to draw a lot more, not necessarily similarities in music, so to speak, but there's a guttural, very raw element of hip hop that only comes from people who have lived what it is that they're talking about. And we've seen that many a times in different artists like the Meek Mills that we enjoy. Um, who else? The little babies, if you will. Just like a lot of people who, as they speak, nah, this person is definitely saying what it is. Um, they actually have gone through what it is that they're speaking about, and I got that throughout this whole album, man. Very drill heavy, but also melodic in a lot of different places. One of my favorites. I don't know who this is. Press play. Listens.
Nice, nice. Um, you spoke to a lot of things that make this album really good. I think hip hop albums can be really good for a few different reasons, right? Sometimes you have somebody whose personality they're just able to express in a beautiful way through the music. Your futures, right? Artists that just it feels effortless. You've got other artists that are incredibly talented musically, right? And are able to put together instrumentals and transitions and pick melodies and pick beats that really allow them to take the listener on a really dope ride, right? And then you have artists that have a story to tell, and that story takes the forefront of their music. A lot of times, when that comes together in one album, it puts together this almost cinematic, right? It's like watching a movie. And this album to me was that. This album was very much a person with a story that had felt it felt like he had no choice but to express it, no choice but to create this body of work. And I enjoyed how he was able to tell that story over a bunch of different types of beats and instrumentals. Uh, Diving into this one, as a fan of hip hop, the way that he chose samples, the way that he chose beats was exactly what I like. It's very sample driven. It's not too experimental. He's picking up a lot of different vibes that I think were winners before there were even words over the beat, and he's putting his story over it, and it's coming together beautifully. Uh, a few standout tracks for me were "Darkness," um, "Would You Stay," "Tracks to Racks," and "I Had a Dream." And those last three are 6, 7, and 8. And I think when the middle of a project like that, right? When you get past the first couple tracks, you get past the intro, you get into what he's really saying, and those parts of an album are solid, I think you often have a really good body of work on your hands. He closed it out really well with the I had a dream track, Life, and Hope It Works. So there was a lot that I liked on this album. And if I'm naming 5 or 6 different songs as highlights, there's a lot here to enjoy.
Something that I was able to pick up from this album was Would You Stay was clearly a homage to 50 Cent's 21 Questions. I don't know if you picked that up. The that dialogue of if I did this, would you stay with me? Same 21 questions. And you can tell that his breadth of inspiration is quite wide. Even though
Yeah.
delivered through a hip hop lens, you can tell that he's pulling from a lot of different sounds, especially even the take what I say. What is it? Take what I say. Um,
Yeah, yeah. The drill influenced one, right?
I actually wrote that down as a note, right? Very heavily drill influenced, classic drill sound. So covering his basis as an artist, going, okay, we're gonna move from here to here to here to paint the full picture of the story. So very well rounded album. How real can it get is some of my favorites. No realer. The Churchill Downs flip was not flip, but that beat and rapping over it. I enjoyed coming straight from I think one of Drake's best verses on his own version, and then having this on there, I'd replace Jack Harlow's verse with this verse. Definitely, that's some of my favorite, man. Shout out to our producer for putting us into some gully street rap, man. We appreciate that.
No doubt, man. I appreciate you pointing out that no realer, that Churchill Downs like freestyle. It's really interesting. I don't know how he did that. I don't know how. I didn't know you could do that. Like that's on Jack Harlow's album, and he's rapping over what sounds like the same instrumental. Maybe there's just a slight difference, but I was surprised to hear that. I was like listening to it. I was like, did I skip? Did it switch to another album? But then hearing him go in over it, he did his thing. It was also interesting to me though. Like I don't know if you how much you've been listening on Apple Music, but Apple Music now does this thing even with brand new albums where it puts stars next to the tracks that I don't know what that means. It doesn't mean that they're the most popular listening to or they're the ones that it's projecting as hits. um the star on one of the stars on this album was by that track No Realer. So I think it did for him what he wanted it to do. I'm sure it brought eyes, I'm sure it brought attention. I'm sure it gave listeners that might not be as familiar with him as an artist something familiar to check for and to hear as he's going through the album. Our boy Hassan is telling us that was the single, so definitely was there to bring eyes and bring attention. um and it worked. But still, standing by the tracks that I listed as some of the highlights are often not the ones that are starred by Apple Music. So I actually think that that's a really good body of work. When you go to an album and it's the starred songs are really the only ones worth listening to, I don't know how good of a project it is. But when I'm bouncing all around this joint and finding different vibes and different moods, I think that's a sign of success. So this was a really good album to me. I'm excited to see where this artist goes from here. I'll definitely be following him from here on out. And I think this is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. What you think?
Man, we still on the same type of time. So I love doing the show with you. Definitely a 3.5 out of 5. And Miles, the reason that you like the songs that don't have stars on them is because you're a star, brother.
Wow. I don't know how much there is to be said after that. Thanks,
Well, we
buddy.
can't